Hello everyone, welcome to BIM One Talk, presented by BIM Free broadcast sponsors Göktekin and Unity. I, Ece Çalışkan, will be your host today. Since it's a live broadcast, technical problems can sometimes occur. In such a situation, please do not leave the broadcast. We will continue as soon as possible. You can write your questions in the comment section on YouTube. I will ask your questions live towards the end of the presentation. Before moving on to my guest, I would like to briefly talk about BIMFIDE. BIMFIDE platform organizes broadcasts, mini documentaries, and meetings on science, art, technology, architecture, and engineering. Don't forget to follow us on social media. My guest is co-founder and CEO of Plannerly, Clive Jordan. Clive, welcome to our broadcast.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
It's real nice to have you here. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Can you tell us about yourself?
That's a very, very open question. Myself, I'm a bit of a lean guru, and I love optimizing everything. I was sort of born into this passion for building things and construction. So I have this combination of this inner desire, this passion to optimize everything that we can for the design and construction industry. That's where I come from. I'm actually British, but when I go back to my hometown just outside of London, they ask me, "Are you Australian?" And I live I live in Southern California right now, but I have lived in lots of different places. So I'm very much disowned by every place that I go to. So I have a bit of a strange accent and very difficult to place me sometimes, but I was born in England and grew up in England and my master's degree in England, but have since traveled the world and built technology to help support our design and construction industry.
That's actually a great introduction, really. I just wondered, you were working for Graphisoft before. What were you doing there and what made you leave?
Yeah, so the Graphisoft piece was kind of an interesting, I started in construction. So I master's in civil engineering and then did construction for 6 years of main construction, heavy civil, roads, bridges, sea defenses, building big town center regeneration projects. But then Graphisoft was an interesting opportunity it was kind of so funny that this very small paragraph in an email to me said something about a unique opportunity, and it said the word unique 3 times in the same paragraph, and I thought, this must be really special, this must be something very, very good. So I went along and discovered that it was we were building a small team inside of Graphisoft's R&D team to essentially build the first commercially available 4D and 5D, so quantity takeoff, driving, scheduling, driving, cost, and all encompassing, so that solution, that first commercial solution, was available for the market to optimize the quantification, the scheduling, and the costing process. And so that was a really fantastic experience. We actually
That's really good, actually.
We built lots of technology, but we also built lots of BIM, lots of models to drive that technology. And at the point when actually the purchase from Nemetschek occurred, we had the opportunity to take the technology and create an independent startup that was called Vico. And Vico software eventually got purchased by Trimble. And that was, again, another stint. But leaving Graphisoft was literally just because of the creation of Vico software, and then subsequently the purchase by Trimble.
And then after that, you continue with LOD Planner, also called as Plannerly.
Yeah, right.
So
the story goes on. So this passion for technology started when I transitioned from construction into technology with Graphisoft, and then it continued on with Trimble and so many different solutions with SketchUp and Tekla and all of these fantastic tools. But one of the challenges that we were trying to solve way back in the Vico days and way back in the Graphisoft days were, how do you define a 3D model? How do you plan? How do you manage? How do you control? Because a 3D model can be used for so many other things, not just like a 2D drawing where you have to interpret in order to get something. So we could see a huge amount of optimization that we could do with a 3D model, but you had to plan for it. So you mentioned LOD Planner and Plannerly.
Yeah, I really wonder the story behind this, like how it has changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started, actually, I had a bit of a shimmy 3 years in an owner's shoes as well, implementing BIM between that. But what we were trying to do was communicate between all of the design and construction teams that were planning a project, that were carrying out the work. And I just saw so much waste in that workflow. And it was related to this LOD concept. So the LOD concept that we originated back in the Graphisoft days, 2004, 2005, LOD 100, 200, 300, 400,
You're
500.
the creator of this, right?
We were part of the, and let me explain, let me defend ourselves first. So the challenge was solving geometry. And so LOD was tied to geometry originally. And then over the 12 years of it becoming a mess, a standardized mess around the world, what we saw is that it was being used for a bunch of other things as well. So when we started LOD Planner, we were trying to solve that problem. We were trying to make it more accurate, more easy, more understandable, more directly validating what has been done, rather than having just a number which is very abstract. And so the funny thing was, we named the first incarnation of the company after the problem that we were trying to solve, which sometimes is not really the right thing to do. Admittedly, yeah. One of our customers that's been with us for a long time, they said to us, it does seem like a dentist that might be called root canal or root surgery or something that's not really what you want to know. Not like the dentist down the road that's called Happy Smiles, for example. That's a much better name. So the transition from LOD Planner to Plannerly is really the subtle play on that name. Is we were always about planning, but it's about planning early. So plan early, Plannerly, is the very subtle play on that name. And a lot of startups had that just LY at the end of it at that point in time. So it all fit very well.
I have to admit, this is much better in terms of marketing, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the principle behind what we're doing, it evolved so much because the LOD piece was one very tiny part of inside of a scope, just inside of an information container at that point in time. And we had a vast array of different ways of doing that across the world. So we've helped consolidate that into a simple thing, but now added 4 more modules to the application. So it's a lot broader. It's a lot more of a platform approach than just a specific scale or solution.
Can you explain what can users do with Plannerly, like very briefly, before moving to the presentation?
We make BIM and planning for design and construction projects simple, fun, and achievable. It's a really, instead of being boring and administration heavy, it's about being fun, using templates and optimizing workflows to make it a lot easier. And people actually get engaged and start to plan early, and it becomes something that people want to do rather than shy away from.
That's great. I had an opportunity to visit your website. It gives information about how Plannerly can help us. There are very useful videos also. It's also nice that resources are shared to a large extent. This is quite unique about you, I think. So I suggest our audience to check plannerly.com if you're interested. Okay, maybe we can move to our presentation today. Today our topic is learn how Plannerly helps you fight Evil BIM and become ISO 19650 compliant. So before we move to the presentation, can you tell us briefly what is ISO 19650 and why is it important?
Yeah, absolutely. ISO 19650 is an information management standard, and it's important because if everyone does information management in a different way, then it's not really very well managed, and it means that there's a lot of waste in the workflow. So what we're about from an ISO 19650 perspective is standardizing and helping teams to talk that same language, do things in a very, very similar way and in a structured way with a purpose, and being able to automate a workflow rather than having mundane steps in that workflow. So there's a big push, and a lot of different countries are starting to standardize on this as a workflow for information management when it comes to BIM.
Thank you. I mean, it's a kind of unified approach actually for the information management. Yeah. Absolutely,
yeah. Yep. And there's some more details on our website, and you'll find some great guidance from the UK BIM framework and a whole bunch of others. There's really good courses that are available as well. You mentioned some of the videos that we have. We like to share, and we like to try and provide as much information about BIM and BIM management as possible. And this is becoming a really big part of a BIM manager's role.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. If you want, we can continue with the presentation. Okay, I'm leaving the floor to you.
Wow, a lot of pressure.
Your turn.
So I hate slides, but it's useful to set the scene sometimes. So I mentioned Plannerly is all about planning early, and we are this management platform. But if I share with you our motto, our mantra, that will hopefully help you understand what we're really trying to do every day. Every day we wake up and we get out of bed, and it's about this smart, lean BIM approach. And that's about doing the right BIM at the right time by the right people, because there's lots of people on the project, but for the right reasons. And for the right reasons is an interesting one, because there are also so many reasons you might do BIM. There's so many different things that you could get from a model. So you might be using it for marketing. You might be using it for clash or coordination. You might use it for quantity takeoff. You might use it for analyzing the building and simulating things. And then the owner might use it for facilities at the end of it. So because there's so many uses, what we find is that there's a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of challenges in agreeing on who should do what BIM at what point in time. Why are they doing it? Who are they delivering it to? And the model could be, you might get too little, too late. You might get too much, too soon. And all of those things would cause rework. That would be a problem for us. So this waste is rife. But as you mentioned, the ISO 19650 workflow is here to help us. And with BIM management, it's all about these three core steps. The step of planning something, and then managing those tasks, and submitting the work, and checking for compliance. So these three core steps in the workflow are really, really important. And if we do that and we act on it and we continually improve right the way around that loop, every time we do things, it will get better and better. But what we noticed a few years ago was that even though we've got fantastic tools for authoring models and analyzing them, and then also using them on a site or in a project, we still use these BIM management, these business management, which are not really BIM management tools, to create BIM execution plans, or to understand, how to scope something, who's responsible for something. And one of the challenges that we saw with that was that most of the time they are not really well connected together. And also most of the time they're not connected through to the really core BIM workflows that we have in the project.
Actually, so we said,
go on.
Sorry to interrupt. I guess I understand what you mean. Like, we are having similar problems in the office. People are always asking, like, is your schedule in Excel up to date? Which file was emailed? Like, it's a kind of disconnected process.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there are a lot of teams trying to tie these together, which is fantastic. And it's possible to manage the process using these tools. Absolutely. But you end up with that exact problem: is what's the version that I need, and how do I manage it when I have to PDF it and send it on an email? and then hopefully, use a DocuSign process somewhere
You
else.
need to record it somewhere, save it somewhere.
Absolutely. Exactly. And so we just saw that as an opportunity and said, what happens if we put all of these things, the best parts, and we're not going to replace with Planoly the use of Excel, for example, because Excel is fantastic. It's flexible to do lots of things. But from a BIM and a project and design management role, it really is not focused on our industry. So we said, how do we take the best pieces of all of those things, put them into a cloud-based, make it really super simple, make it integrated, and make it more efficient. That's like simply our motto of what we tried to do. And the other part to it was to say, how do we, it was a nice slide transition there. It's quite cool.
This is the fun part.
Yeah. Now this is the part where I say, now this is the last slide, and then we can go into and show you actually what we're talking about in the software. But the management of this workflow, when you have a project planning, a task management, and a set of BIM compliance applications in lots of different forms, it becomes difficult. So we said, well, let's make modules to make it easy to plan and create BIM execution plans or exchange information requirements from templates, and also your asset information registers and your responsibility matrices for all of your teams, all in the same place. Your task information delivery plans, your master information delivery plans, all of those BIM acronyms and terminology. Let's simplify it, make it easy to put into the plan and scope. And then when you contract for it, how about making it really super simple so you pre-populate all of the tasks that you need to then schedule, track, program, etc., and progress? How do you make sure that everything that you've scoped and contracted to, teams that are working on it, and it doesn't have to be done if you are not part of the task team, but the task management teams would then be able to sequence their own work and make sure that they're working on the right things. And the final step is verify. So if you're having a model deliverable in a completely separate environment to your original contract requirements, that becomes disconnected. How do you start checking that? If we can connect that right the way through, it would make it more simple and easy to do that. So that was our philosophy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we are having these situations every day, so I really understand what you mean. Cool. I'm sure it will be quite helpful.
So let's take a look at the software. You tell me if I share the screen, and I don't know whether I need to maximize that or not, but hopefully you can see that. And so what we have is a set of projects, and each project, if we enter a project, you'll see all of the teams and team members and access to other products that they might have for that project. But then the plan, scope, schedule, track, and verify are modules for us on this project. And if I look at the plan, we might have an exchange information requirement set, or pre-contract or pre-appointment BIM execution plans, and even to the appointment documents with all of the information particulars, where to find certain things and the protocol and any terms and standards that we're following. The brilliant part of this is that not only do we have all of this in the same place, but we also have access to all of the templates and the library of information. So if we're really interested in so if you're missing something, you can go and grab it if it's from your standards, or if it's from. And actually, let me take a step back as well. Let me share with you how we get there. If I was to create a new project, and if I just call this new, this is the sort of how to quickly create something from templates. If you're working with an owner and they need to set up the exchange information requirements, BIM execution plan, appointment, and maybe the RACI documents, so that you can understand responsibility, accountability, who needs to be consulted and who needs to be informed as things are done. That's how quick it is to set this up. So we've now created all of this content in our project for each of these tabs. So the BIM execution plan, got the appointment documents, we've got the RACI, so who needs to do certain things, we can assign responsibilities, and all of that is quickly created.
Having sample templates is definitely great. Also, you can get benefit from know-how information. We always start from the scratch, and this is great.
And the thing that I should point out as well is that these templates are actually created and curated by a team around the world. And if you are wanting to get involved, you can also join that team and start to contribute as well. So if you are a bit of a BIM Jedi and understand all of this terminology and want to get involved, I think if you go to the website and /reviewer, you can join that team. And the team at the moment, I think, is 150 something people and from 30 something countries. So it's a really, really fantastic opportunity to support the continuous improvement of these templates for our industry. Yeah, it's not something that we are pushing out. So if, just sort of jumping around, but this is how we would start to create our BIM execution planning and our exchange information requirements, etc. But if we have structured data that we need to look at, in the scope, this is where we would start it. And this could be based on BIM uses, or it could be based on maybe the asset information requirements and a whole bunch of others. If I was to simply create one BIM use based on 3D coordination, and this is where we would be sitting with the customer in the meeting and talking through their requirements, understanding what they're going to do with the model or with the design at different stages throughout the project. And when they are able to just communicate and pick from a list and then suddenly see that set of requirements instantly on their screen, we can then start to have a conversation around this. And one of the great things then is we can understand what they want and what they don't want. For example, in the structural steel, do they want to see the trusses? Yes or no? If they don't, then we can simply remove the trusses and the image will update. If they want them, you can see them added back in. This simple matrix becomes your responsibility matrix, becomes your asset information requirements, etc. And let me dig back into the project that we were just in and see something that is completed with some more information. We can see, for example, let me fold this up so that we can see. This would be your asset information register, potentially with all of your assets required. And if you have information required on certain assets at certain points in time, this could be all spelled out. And going down into the detail of maybe the master information delivery plan, what are the documents at what stages throughout the project for them, what are the responsibilities and requirements for each of these teams at certain points in time, for each of them.
Who is going to model it?
Sorry, say again?
Who is going to model it? Like,
absolutely,
who is going to model plumbing fixtures, electrical appliances, engineers or architects? We are always fighting about it.
That's a great point. So if you look at the electrical scope and understand who is responsible at certain points in time. So this is a perfect example. The electrical fixtures here, the lighting is by the architect, and it's only required in 2D. There might be some information requirements, but the 3D is not until coordination stage, and it's by the electrician. So you can start to understand, even down to colors and people assignments, and if there are information requirements as well associated with these, who's the point of contact, what's the warranty, etc. So that really does help to, as you said, assign responsibility and make sure that teams are accountable. It's the whole responsible, accountable, consulted, informed, and it's all built into the matrix here. So I get quite excited about this workflow because it's really sometimes so complex. And so what we're really trying to do is simplify as much as possible. So you could see from the templates, we could build this, but you can build your own templates and be as complex or as simple as you like. And it depends on how many stages and what milestones you're planning for. But quite simply, if we looked at the structural requirements here and said that these foundations needed certain items to be checked in a checklist, maybe they have specific requirements that are part of the checklist needs to be that they meet these specification requirements, and maybe they have certain properties that need to be completed as well. Well, we can start to track that through the schedule, track, and verify modules. The schedule and the track if you do this today, if you manage your tasks using this approach, then great. So if we looked at 3D coordination and we saw this has got a filter on at the moment saying that we've got 3 sets of teams, but you can start to put a timeline to these tasks. And if we are tracking the status of these tasks, you can start to see them in the matrix here. And then we would start to visualize them in the verify module. So I'm just kind of jumping right the way through to the end, this verify module, and we can start to see the model and the elements that are connected to this task. Let's go back and filter for, let's show some more that all team members, let's see what else we have in here. So we wanted to see some of these others. Let me just show what's been verified, and actually let me clear everything, and then let's just show what's been verified as an example. So then we can start to see other models and other versions. So let's bring up model with everything in. And if we look at these tasks, you can start to see these are all of the curtain wall panels. These are the parking. This is the set of foundations. And we can see what they've been, who's been responsible for them, what the status is on the checklist items, right down into the details of what properties have been completed, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the great things by doing this is you end up with a visual status of what that model looks like. And very quickly, you can start to understand, you know, what's ready for our team to review, what is verified, what needs fixing, what's still in the to-do list, or what's not linked, what actually hasn't been part of that scoping process so far as well. So
this really covers the whole process, and it's great.
Absolutely, not all of it, but we try to plan, manage, and check for all of those deliverables at every stage throughout the project. We're not creating them. Obviously, you're using Revit and Tekla and ArchiCAD and other tools to create these deliverables, but yeah. So I realized that I just throw so much at the audience, but hopefully some of it makes sense and some of it is going to be useful. There's a lot to cover here, so we totally understand. What we end up doing is, if you go back to the main project and start to say, you know what, in my project, I'm only going to be using the plan and the scope modules. So when I save this, you end up having just 2 tabs, 2 modules at the top, and you're simply going to use this for planning your BIM execution plan and defining what the scope requirements are for your project. And that's as simple as it could be if that's what you wanted to do. So
BIM is developed to make our lives easier, but we are not using it in accordance with this procedure. That's why I guess you are calling it Evil BIM, but Planner is going to help us a lot.
Yeah, I should maybe go back to that concept of Evil BIM so that we can really share and connect back into the whole title of this presentation. The principle of Evil BIM, and as I was describing at the start, was doing wasteful BIM. If you don't know who should model that light fixture, at what point in time, if 2 people or 3 people do it, that's wasteful. And therefore, that's what we describe it as Evil BIM. If an owner is specifying BIM and asking for way too much because they read online that BIM is going to solve all of their problems,
yes,
how do they, yeah, they want to check a list and they want everything on the list, but really that's just going to increase the cost for them. So how are they able to really drill down, eliminate that evil BIM, and get to very smart lean BIM that can save them time and money on their project? And all of that whole workflow is following the ISO 19650 principles, which is have a purpose, define a purpose. So if you see on our screen here, when we have asset requirements at a certain point in time, this would be the purpose. The asset registration you see is very detailed, and why we are building these rooms and why we need to have this specific information at this time needs to be defined so that we can understand the purpose. The teams are pushing, driving towards a result that actually is going to be valuable for the project. So that's tying back into the reason behind why we're fighting Evil BIM with this concept of smart and lean and much more organized BIM, but making it fun at the same time. That's one of our goals, is to make this less administration and more fun at the same time.
It's an important aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think, you know, just to recap on what we shared, the plan enables you to create a BIM execution plan. Let me move these slides on so that I can grab something and share with you a bit more of a background here. So the 5 modules that I've just shared on the screen, the first one is about planning. So simple BIM execution planning, allowing you to drag and drop from templates and create both your BIM execution plan as a response to the employer, in response to the appointing party, or in your workflow, your contract documents, and really have one place for all of those standards and documents. And then the scope enables you to follow the principles of level of information need and understanding the geometry, documentation information, understanding who is responsible for doing what at what point in time, and making it really clear and visual. And then when we look at the scheduling, we're really helping teams avoid the waste of rework. When we're able to define a sequence of tasks and understand the right time to start a task, it means that we don't end up stopping and starting and stopping and starting. It really helps us focus on the right tasks. And then we look at the schedule and the track together. It's a simple way of updating. Lean tells us this Kanban board of what is to do, doing, done, is a much more easy way to update progress on tasks. So we're really enabling teams to filter their own work and get into those challenges. And then if you're using BIM 360, or if you just want to drag and drop a model into the browser, you can connect that back to the original requirements and make sure that they are being met before you use the model for any work later on downstream. So that's really just to summarize. And I'm hoping that I'm realizing what sort of presentation deck I pulled up and not being prepared for our session. Let me finish on something that looks a little bit more professional, like this one here. So hopefully that gives you an insight into what Planoly can help you do, streamline the workflow of BIM management and help you to avoid that evil BIM, make it fun and easy to follow the ISO 19650 standards.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation and the small demo. Simplifying this complex process with Planoly is quite impressive. There are many questions actually on YouTube. If you want, we can move on to Q&A part. Let me check. Okay, first one. Damla Yiğit is asking, how long does it take to do the planning with Planoly at the beginning of the project? That's also taking time. Yeah, it's a great question. If you have templates already, then it obviously is a lot quicker. We have heard from some teams that it cuts a 45-day process to a 45-minute meeting. And I'm like, can I use that in a quote from you? And I need to get their approval on it. But it's astonishing if you have templates. If you don't already, then you can use the templates that are out of the box to help you. But you tell us. We try every day to make sure that you don't have to have any training. That's our whole philosophy, is that if you find a challenge in the software then that you don't understand, ask a question and we will respond, but then we'll try and fix the root cause of that question so that everyone in the world won't have the same question. That's our desire. That's what we're trying to do. We need to help each other. Absolutely. Yeah. If you can help us improve the platform, then it will make your lives easier as well. Also, this is what review team is for, right? Sorry, say again. You mentioned review team. It's also kind of doing this thing.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Yep. Join the review team if you have input on making the templates better as well. So there's a big part of this whole community. So there's the Smart Lean BIM community of partners. If you're a BIM consultant and you would like to join that community, then there's a place on the website to become a partner of Plannerly as well. And through that program, there's a whole bunch of opportunities. There's lots of things that you can go and discover, but that will help yourself. It will help the platform. It will help the templates. It will help the translation in lots of different languages as well.
This is great. I mean, unlike other companies, you really want people to get involved. Thanks so much for this.
But I think that one of the things that a lot of big companies miss is that the user knows the right thing to do. And I think that one of the things that we are all architects, engineers, contractors ourselves, and software is obviously enabling us to be able to do things more quickly and make it easier and more efficient. But if you do the wrong thing really, really well, it's not going to improve too much. But if you do the right thing really, really well, then magic and really fantastic things can happen. And we believe the only way to do that is to make sure that it's what the users want and it helps them become much more efficient. So yeah, tell us what we are doing, what we should be doing, and we will improve that with you and for you.
Our next question is, how is Plannerly managed? Does the employer need someone to organize Plannerly? Like, who is running it actually? Can the architectural team manage it?
The answer is yes to all of those, but you'll use a different part of the workflow. And what we've been, it's been really interesting and a great journey for us is when you create a platform that ties together what the owner wants, what the architect wants to provide, what the engineers think they need to be able to engineer and create the model and use it, and then what the contractor needs for coordination and documentation. If you've got all of those opinions, it's very difficult to do that in disparate tools. You really need to bring that all together. But what that means is that you end up having those users at different points in time from all of those teams in the same place. And it depends on each time who wants the best from the BIM process. It really is, if you are the leader on the project for BIM, then you probably would be one of the managers on Plannerly, helping teams to collaborate and agree. However, there are teams that use it themselves, whether it's just an engineer that provides a services contract or a BIM modeling team that says this is the modeling scope, and they quickly print it from templates and share it and track it. That workflow as well. So there's a lot of different personas that use the application. But
there are different managers for different situations.
Yeah, I think so BIM managers in each of those different roles, in each of those different companies.
Alperen Balchan is asking, first, thank you for your presentation. How is the industry's knowledge of ISO 19650 that is required for most of the projects? Is it quite common?
It's starting to become more and more common. And there is a big push in lots of different countries that are now realizing that standardization and government standardizing from the top down is useful. We've obviously seen everything that's happened in the UK, and there's pros and cons. There's positive and negative to that, but really what it pushes through is a desire to all talk the same language. And I think that that's the right thing to do when it comes to BIM. And the knowledge is increasing. We're trying to help with that, but one of the pointers that I would direct you to is the UK BIM framework, which has some fantastic guidance that will really help on educating those around you with ISO 19650. But you can on our website, there are a bunch of webinars, and we actually have a webinar series that I would recommend that you watch. I think episodes 1 and 2 are recorded and they're available on the website now. And if you sign up for episode 3, which is towards the end of this month, you'll start to see a lot more of that workflow, and we explain the standards in those webinars. So hopefully that will be useful.
That's good to know. Do you provide support to companies for usage? Let's say somebody bought Plannerly, they want to use it. What happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few different levels. There's in-app videos, so you can watch videos as training. There's in-app support as chat if you have a question. Then we have the masterclass series, which is dedicated for companies, and it's 4 sessions that take you through the workflow. So as you purchase a company plan, you'll get that as part of your plan. And one of our team will actually walk you through those so that you can truly understand how to get the best out of the platform. And that's free with any company plan as well.
Aria is asking, BIM planning is mostly desired for large-scale and international projects. When do you think it will become widespread in standard small-scale projects? How do you see the future of the industry?
It's a big question. So I think that if you are interested in improving your organization's efficiency, then you would start to implement BIM on every project that you work on. But the challenge is the learning curve and the software and all of the process change that might be needed. But if you're implementing it for yourselves on one specific reason, one BIM use that you can make much more efficient inside of your organization, you would see the payment back for that pretty quickly, rapidly, and teams are doing that. But as an industry level, and as you start to, and I use an example, 15 years ago, we had a project where it was just literally a hole in the middle of a road, and they had to put a concrete box in and then a slab on top. And we BIMmed this project because the owner said, we're not going to use BIM on small projects. So we said, well, let's try it on any project, any small project. And they laughed at us because they said, here's the project. And we thought, oh no, what's going to be wrong on this? It was just a box in the middle of the road with a slab on top. The slab on top was a precast slab. So there was a hole in the precast slab that had to obviously be designed and precast. And then when they would get to site, they'd have to put it in place. And they had to close this road in order to dig the hole. So it was very time intensive. It had to be done overnight. And when we BIMmed the project, we found that the design for the precast, the hole, was in the wrong place in the slab because the step irons for the person getting out could not be placed in the location that they put them. So even though the design looked like it worked in 2D, when you put it into 3D, which took about 20 minutes, it showed that they would have had a problem and they would have to go and close the road a second time. So I say that BIM can work for so many projects, it really doesn't matter how big they are, but it takes commitment and it takes focus on the right reasons and doing it, not for the evil reasons of just marketing and winning a project, but for efficiency for your project.
This was a really great example. I will continue with Aliye's comment. She is also saying, we are so glad to see you in this platform. Thank you for the presentation. Ali is also part of our team. She has another question. Will Plannerly develop with different goals as a BIM software? What's your long-term plans about Plannerly?
Oh. I love talking about our roadmap and talking about all of the fantastic things that we are going to add. One of the cool things that we're adding for the next webinar is actually e-signature. So starting to get into really contract binding agreements, not just collaborative and visual planning, but also making it into a contract. As you start to have a contract and you think about digital currencies and digital agreements, we will really be interested in starting to manage the procurement process and the payment processing and understanding who has done what, and when they get verified, being able to pay that team instantaneously for that small piece of work. So if you imagine on a design and construction project, not having to worry about any of the very detailed payment processing. It's just a natural part of the workflow of somebody saying, yes, I verified they did that. So there's a whole bunch of other things in there. We've got BCF connections. We've got APIs that we were really pushing and wanting to put in place with a lot of other companies and other tools. But if you would like to learn more, I'd love to talk about that offline, and we can tell you all the secrets.
That's great for Aliya. I'm sure she will be in contact with you. Another question is, are the 5 models purchased separately? If so, which models are preferred? Or
we make it so cheap that, okay, so let me, that it doesn't matter. You get all of them. But the backstory to that is I have been on both sides of the purchasing of software, and I have hated both sides. I've hated me being part of Trimble and selling software, and hated me being part of an owner and buying software from Autodesk, for example. Like the whole buying workflow is just, it's broken, and people want different things. Obviously, the software provider wants more money, the end user wants more use, and there's this.
It's not directly related with BIM. It's another subject, actually.
Yeah, it absolutely. So for us, we just say, let's make the software so cheap that doesn't become any part of the decision making. It's just, let's get more users on the platform, all doing the same thing, and making it easier for teams to actually do the right design and construction in their work. So the actual answer is you can purchase what you need, but it's really, we don't really give you too many options. If you want certain add-ons like connection to BIM 360 and things like that, then we can do that as well. But yeah, if you're interested, go to the site and just press the quote button, and there's a quote system that will give you a quote and give you a crazy discount as well. Tell them I sent you.
You'll get additional discount. This is our last question, I guess. Has Plannerly become more common during Corona period since it is cloud-based?
I think that's a given. Yeah, what happened through the Corona last year, it was an explosion for us, that everyone obviously is then forced online, and collaboration was needed. So a collaborative planning platform in order to agree on what people should do in order so that they can make sure they're focused on the right things and contracting for the right things. Yeah, it was a pretty good result for us, that lots of customers are now starting to not just think about doing something that will help and make things more efficient, but actually need to do something like that and make it easier for themselves.
That makes sense. We had so much trouble working at home last year. So.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I guess this was the last one. Thank you very much to you and your team. I think we made a very enjoyable broadcast.
I didn't even get time for the jokes that my children had lined up.
If you want, you can share with me.
We don't need to do embarrassing dad jokes.
You can do it after the broadcast if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share them with you.
I mean, you turned Evil BIM, as you call it, into a very workable, enjoyable process. It's a huge success. Congratulations for that. I hope the use of BIM and BIM management platforms will become widespread in Turkey very soon. Do you want to add anything before we end our broadcast?
Thank you to everyone that was listening. Thank you for your questions. And yeah, let us know how we can help you.
Thank you so much. We have come to the end of the broadcast. Thank you all for the participation, and do not forget to follow BIM on social media. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.